Before starting today's video, I want you to remember that this man's name is Carl Webb. He remained unnamed for almost 70 years when he didn't deserve to be called by the place he was found dead. And now finally, when we have his name, maybe that's the last kind of respect we can give him. Hello mysterious family, welcome back to Mysterious Mariam. I am Mariam Ahsan. Before getting into the video, let me give a fair disclaimer that this video is for educational purposes and all the information given is present online. Let's get started. On November 30th, 1948, before 10:40 in the morning, a tall, tanned man, about 45 years old, was walking from Adelaide railway station to the city baths behind Parliament House where he showered and shaved. Between 10:50 and 11:10, he returned to the railway station and paid 6 pence for a train ticket to Henley Beach. He missed his train for some unknown reason. He then checked his bag into a clock room. At about 11:10, he crossed North Terrace to Strathmore Hotel and catched a bus to Glenelg. Around 11:40, he got off in front of St. Leonard's Hotel on Anzac Highway. He then ate pastry somewhere in Glenelg as his last meal. On the evening, he was seen laying apparently alive in the sand at Somerton Beach opposite to the old crippled children's home. A local jeweler, Jhon Lyons, on the night of November 30th, 1948, was enjoying a stroll on the public walkway along Somerton Beach in Adelaide, Australia with his wife. He saw a man laying in the sand wearing a dress with clean polished shoes, smoking a cigarette. He thought nothing much of the man at that moment. He thought he must be a drunk or a businessman enjoying evening sea breeze. Next morning, that is December 1st, 1948, when Jhon Lyons returned for a swim at around 6:30 in the morning, he saw the same man laying at the same place in the same position but realized that he was dead. He then hurried home to call police station. He informed police about the dead body. Police arrived at 6:40 in the morning. They saw the man's left arm was laying beside his body. The right arm was bent double. His eyes were open. The man had his head resting against the seawall and feet pointing towards the sea. A half-smoked cigarette was on the right collar of his coat. That was it. No wound, no bruises, no weapon. He was moved to Royal Adelaide Hospital and examined by Dr. John Bennett, who pronounced the man dead. Right now, the priority of the police was to find the identity of the man, so they checked his pockets for his wallet or identity card. The pockets contained almost nothing. In his pockets were bus and train tickets, chewing gum, some matches, a few scraps of paper, 2 combs, and a pack of cigarettes. He had no wallet, no cash, and no ID. The most baffling element of the find was that the brand labels which could have helped tracking the man down from each piece of clothing had been neatly and deliberately cut away. Obviously, it was assumed that someone seeing their loved one missing would come forward and identify the body, but nobody did. On December 2nd, 1948, a post-mortem examination was held by Dr. James Dyer, a government pathologist, and specimens were taken for the analysis by him. He could not give the exact cause of death, although he was convinced it was not from the natural causes. The immediate cause of death was heart failure, but it is unknown what factor caused it. It was at first thought that it may have been from a soluble hypnotic poison, but he was unable to find any trace of these or any other poison in his analysis. Police took photographs and issued death portrait to the newspapers. Still nobody came forward. His fingerprints matched nothing in record in Australia. People came forward with various speculation. A woman was sure that it was her relative. Another woman wondered if it was her missing son. The leads were checked but yielded nothing. 2 people suspected it was a missing Morgan woodcutter, Robert Walsh, but Walsh was 63, too old to match the man on the beach. By the end of the second week, more than 20 people viewed the body. Theories abound. The man had strong leg muscles and they thought that he may have been a Russian or even Bulgarian ballet dancer. Perhaps he was the heartbroken victim of a failed romance who had suicided using a mystery poison. The ticket found in the pant led detectives to Adelaide railway station. Inquiries at the clock room at the station revealed that a suitcase had been left there on November 30th, 1948 and nobody had claimed it. A search of the contents of the case revealed a card of tan-colored thread which was identical with the thread in the coat and trousers worn by the deceased. A linen handkerchief, jockey underpants and a shirt found in the suitcase were identical with the clothing worn by the man. The name tabs in all the clothing in suitcase had been removed. The name T. Keen appeared on the grey tie, Keen on a singlet, and Keen was stamped on a white linen bag found in the suitcase. The coat worn by the deceased was examined in search of any clue by leading Adelaide tailor, Mr. Hogg Poza, and after pulling the shoulder padding apart, he said that the coat was American origins, as the sewing technique used in the coat was only used in the US at that time. Detectives obtained the information about all the important US originated coats, but no identity matched this particular coat. So detectives speculated that either this man had been to the US at some point in his life where he bought this coat, or he bought it from someone who brought this coat from the US. So photographs and fingerprints of the deceased were circulated by police throughout the English-speaking countries, but once again there was no lead. Investigation spread to Britain, the United States, New Zealand and South Africa. Eventually, in June, a plaster cast was made of the man before a proper burial on June 14, 1949 at West Terrace Cemetery. The funeral was paid for by the South Australian Grandstand Bookmakers Association. During the coronial inquest in April 1949, a professor re-examined the evidence and found something police had earlier missed. He found a tiny, scrunched up piece of paper inside fob pocket of man's trouser. It only deepened the mystery. The word Taman Shud were written on the paper, but detectives Len Brown and Raymond Lean did not know what that meant. A local reporter told police that these words were the last two words of the poem The Rubaiyat, written 900 years ago by a Persian poet Umar Khayyam and translated into English at the end of 19th century. The words are roughly translated as ended or finished. Police instantly linked this to their early suicide poison theory, but there was still no evidence to support their supposition. All they had to explain this death was only two words and a mysterious suitcase. Again, as the death looked like never being solved, police received a new piece of evidence when a Glendale doctor revealed that he had come by a copy of the Rubaiyat in unusual circumstances. Unexplainable, someone had thrown a copy of the book in the back of his unlocked car while it had been parked in Mosley Square the night before the man's death. The copy had a piece torn out of its last page, and the missing piece was Tamam Shud. Even more mysterious was a code scribbled on the inside cover in pencil, a code that remained unsolved even today. Believing this was their missing link, Detective Brown and Lean tried to trace the origin of the book. They found a telephone number in the bag and contacted that number. This was a former nurse who was living in South Australia. She told police that she had once owned a copy and gave it to a soldier as Boxall when she was working in Sydney. Police thought, we have got him. All we have to do now is to find Boxall's family and the mystery is resolved. But the search again led to a dead end when they found Mr. Boxall alive and well. He admitted having a copy of the Rubaiyat and showed it to the police, intact and with no code scribbled in the back and no missing Tamam Shud. The woman, who at the time lived in Glenelg, just a short walk from where the man's body was found, still said she knew nothing of Somerton man. She said she gave the book to the army lieutenant as a gift in 1945 but later got married to someone else. Her name was Jo Thompson and she had a son, Robin Thompson. People also speculated that Somerton man had a relationship with Jo and Robin was Somerton man's son because he had similar uncommon teeth arrangement and very rare ear structure which both supposed father and son had. It was also suggested that man was a spy and involved in intelligence work during World War II. This theory intrigued many because World War II recently ended. Throughout all the twists and turns, the code proved to be most intriguing. It has been passed on to the thousands of people even till today, but no one can shed any real light on it. Leading mathematicians, astrologers and code breakers have all tried to crack it using their own theories. The note even was given to naval intelligence in 1990s. Some people suggested answer might be lining up the letter to musical notes. Renowned code breaker Jim Girogli, a California computer scientist, believed that letters are just likely to be his actual thoughts. Rather than spell them out, the man may simply have used the first letter of the words. For example, MLIABO could represent my life is a bundle of. ITTM could be I think that my. According to Mr. Gilogly, this might be credible for a suicide note. Another code-breaking guru, British scientist and maths whiz Simon Singh, concurs with Mr. Gilogly's theory, saying the note doesn't appear to be too complicated and letters are likely to be acronyms from a message to himself or an associate. Detective Gary Felters, who had been involved in this case in recent years said if this theory was applied, the last line could be, "It's time to move to South Australia, Mosley Street." DNA evidence was available to police in the form of hair strands at police museum, but there was no evidence to match it to. His remains were exhumed in May 2021 in a bid to solve the case. He had been buried at a cemetery since 1949 with a tombstone reading, "Here lies the unknown man who was found at Somerton Beach." After more than 70 years, a researcher says that he has finally solved the mystery. Somerton man was called Webb, and he was not any Russian agent but rather a Melbourne-born electrical engineer. Derek Abbott was able to analyze the Somerton man's DNA using hairs preserved when authorities made a plaster model of his face. He teamed up with a renowned US forensic expert, Colleen Fitzpatrick, who specializes in cold cases, to build an extended family tree using the DNA. Fitzpatrick told that she and Abbott started with a match in the DNA database Ancestry.com and then built out his family tree until they found someone who fit the description of who they were looking for. And from 4,000 names, the pair narrowed it down to one, called Webb, as he was the only person with no death record and he had a cousin named Thomas Keane. Remember T. Keane and Keane labels found on Cole's clothing? They then tracked down the man's living relative using their DNA to confirm his identity. According to Professor Abbott, Webb was born in 1905 in a suburb of Melbourne. He was youngest of 6 siblings and married Dorothy Robertson, known as Dorf Webb. That's most likely what brought him to Adelaide. According to Abbott, he had evidence that Carl separated from his wife and that she had moved to South Australia, so possibly he had come to track her down. Abbott also had attempted to nurses Joe family for DNA analysis in an attempt to find out if Joe and Carl were really related, but upon finding both Joe Thompson and her son Robin Thompson dead, he sought expert opinion which showed biological link between Robin and Somerton man, likely due to sharing the same rare dental and ear conditions. Fitzpatrick said DNA evidence disapproves any genetic relationship with Robin Thompson and therefore Abbott's own wife, Robin Thompson's daughter Rachel Egan, whom Abbott met during the investigations. Even though Somerton men now have a name, but all the lingering questions remain. Was it a suicide? Was it a murder? Was he a spy or a jilted lover? Was the mystery nurse involved in any way? How did he die? Where did the poison or the luggage ticket go? We still don't know who he is or what he was doing. Was there a connection with Joe the nurse? All that were involved with the case have already passed away and the original investigation files were misplaced or destroyed. The case is still considered open by Australian authorities. So, what's your theory, or which theory you think better explain Carl's death mystery? Do tell me in the comment section. And that was it for today's case. Please drop a like and press subscribe if you liked the video to help me keep making similar videos. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.